Hi everyone, welcome to another Publisher Parish Design Diary. The topic today is characters. So each player chooses a character, and what I wanted for this game was something that's not a full RPG. You have to create a character and there's all these different stats to them, like Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. Or even, a game like Gloomhaven where you're tracking the same character over lots and lots of scenarios and games, but something that had a little bit more unique flavor to each character than Sorry or Monopoly, where you're a token, but all the tokens play exactly the same. So I wanted to give just a little bit of uniqueness to each character. Maybe a good example would be something like Forbidden Desert or Pandemic, where all the characters mostly play the same, but they each have one unique special attribute or special power or something they can do better than the other characters. And that's more the model I was going for. Here was an early draft of a character card. So it had the title of the character. You can see this is kind of what their superpower was. So in this case, this character could lower their stress by spending 1 time unit, whereas other characters have a much higher cost to do that. And then they also had some specific attributes, so a research area within their field. Initial versions of the game, and I was never necessarily planning on this being permanent, but I was using just terminology from my own field, which is film studies, so kind of different sub-areas in there was textual analysis, there's cultural analysis, there's film history. In the current versions, I've ditched that for a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek field of board game studies, since you're playing a board game, so there's a couple different subcategories within board game studies there. But everyone still has some sort of area they specialize in, and certain jobs might be looking for someone with that particular specialty. This mirrors the real world, where sometimes a job might be looking for a generalist, or looking for anybody who can teach film studies in my case, or particularly if it's a bigger department, they might be looking for someone with specific expertise. A super simple classic example would be if you're in an English department, a very small department might just want generalists. If you have a larger department, they might be specialized, want somebody who teaches British literature or someone who teaches American literature. And there's all sorts of different subspecialties and time period eras depending on the size of your department stuff. But that might be something where, hey, we have a bunch of people who are experts in British literature and we're really looking for someone who is an expert in American literature. So that's where the kind of subfield makes a difference. And then we had these things about particular areas or types of schools that you might like to work at, and you got a little bonus for being at one of those and a little bit of a penalty if you end up at one of the types that you don't like. So in this case, someone who did not want to be in the West or at a very large school. And then lastly over here, this was where you track your stress level. So it go up or down. And then there was associated time bonus or penalty. So if your stress was very low, basically it's like you're very relaxed. You can kind of do more with your time was the thematic justification for this. So you got a little extra time each year. At the opposite end, if you're super stressed out already, we all know how it goes. You get a little less efficient. You're not working as smoothly, or maybe you're stressed out and already feeling like you don't have enough time. And so to kind of replicate that idea, you would get less time than usual. I'd say the core concepts of how I'm thinking about characters have pretty much stayed the same through various iterations. One thing I did play with was the idea of letting people make their own. I'm still thinking I might do that, or maybe that's whenever we go on Kickstarter, that's kind of a stretch goal where you get some sheets where you can design your own character with their own area of specialization and likes and dislikes and maybe your own sort of bonus. But just to kind of show you where this is at now, here's the same character. Each year you can spend 1 time unit to lower your stress. In the current draft of it, again, as with all these things I show here, none of this is finalized. These little icons I made for the characters were just generated by an AI image generator with some prompts, and I got some very bizarre images out of those. I'll post a few of those on our Instagram. But to have some kind of icon that then matches what's on the tokens, and the colors also match so you can keep track of who's who a little easier. You can see the same thing here. There's the idea of some likes and dislikes. Here it's listed as personal preferences. You still have a specialization area. And we still have the stress tracker here. One thing that got added thanks to feedback from a friend of mine was this idea of moving actually having a cost to it, which I think anyone who has had to move to different locations across the country can certainly empathize with. So if you're moving, that actually costs you some of your stamina or energy, and it has a financial cost to it as well. That varies a little bit depending on some of the characters. For instance, there's one character whose superpower is good budgeting, and so they don't have as high of a penalty for that. And the other thing that changed, if you look at that older version I had, the likes and dislikes basically all just affected your stress. In this case, the dislikes affect your stress. You get higher stress for going somewhere you don't want to be. But the likes are achievements. So you can actually get a personal achievement for being in the area of the country you want to be, or a professional achievement for getting a job at the type of school you'd want to be. So that's how the character's laid out. That stress tracker is still here, and you can see I actually shrank the number of levels a little bit. There's also this thing, max stress. So if you get to the maximum stress level at the start of the year, this is checked for everybody. And if you're at that level at the start, then you take what's called a mental health break. And in this case, you actually flip over this card. And on the reverse side of it, it tells you what to do. So basically the idea here is you were so stressed out, you just need to take a leave of absence and kind of reset yourself. You take some penalties for that, but it also gives you a chance to get yourself back to a better place in the game. So it drops your stress level a bunch of levels. You get some stamina back and just kind of give yourself a chance to recuperate. The other thing is, since you're on a leave, you don't have any of your normal work requirements. So that frees up some time that year for you to kind of get things back on track. So this is a way in the game, if somebody's character gets super stressed out to that highest level, instead of them just losing or kind of never being able to recover, you take a little bit of a penalty, but it also kind of resets a bunch of your other things to a place where hopefully you can be more effective and compete more as the game goes on. And so you do that for a year and then you flip it back over to your normal character. So that's the idea of these. Here's a couple of the current characters. The personal preferences just kind of vary so that there's somebody who likes being in each region, somebody who doesn't like being in each region, that sort of thing, so that there's no one place or type of school or specialty that's inherently much better. Everyone's going for that same one. But their superpowers are a little different. So the strategist gets to get a sneak peek at some extra action cards and pick the ones they want instead of just taking whatever's on top of the deck. Super parent needs to spend less time on childcare for every child they have. And brainstormer, similar to the strategist with the action cards, this is basically when you're doing thinking time, trying to get ideas for new projects and stuff, you get an extra one. So basically you can come up with 2 ideas for the price of 1. What I hope comes through here is that most of the time, in most ways, the characters all play the same. You all get jobs the same way. You all go to school the same way. You all have to deal with the same kind of responsibilities and stuff. But you get a little specific advantage to your character that might affect your strategy and how you play the game a little bit. So for instance, if I was this character where I know my bonus is kind of children are less time costly for me, then I might be trying to go for more personal achievements, start a family earlier and have more kids and try to get more achievements that way. Whereas somebody who can get extra research project ideas more easily might be focusing on that and trying to write more and publish more quickly and go for more personal achievements. Either player could play either way. These advantages are designed to not be so overwhelming that forces you into that kind of play or that one character is particularly overpowered, but to give you just a little bit of a different play style and encourage people to tweak their strategies in different directions depending on what kind of character they are. And again, this is something I really like, the idea of letting people create their own characters a little bit with this. And that's something, like I said, I'm thinking about for maybe some kind of stretch goal in the Kickstarter. I don't think it's going to be part of the core game just because I want to get pre-made characters so people can jump in and play very quickly. But I think it could be fun and let people pick, like, well, actually, this is the region of the country I want to work in. This is the type of school I would like to be at. And you can customize it a little bit if someone's playing who does want to go into academia to kind of match more what their interests are. But we'll see. The other thing I'm playing with a little bit is what the right number of characters to include with the game are. First drafts I had at one point 10 or 12 different characters, and I found everyone was spending a lot of time at the beginning of the game looking through those, trying to figure out which one they wanted, and it almost was like an overwhelming choice, and the game was never designed to be played with 12 players at once, so it was seeming like that was too much choice and was slowing people down from getting into the game. I don't want the character to be a huge decision someone makes, so I'm definitely going to include fewer than that. I'm debating whether to just include the number for however many players there are or include a couple extras, or maybe have 4 players in the core game. And again, a stretch goal or an expansion or something could be adding a couple more different players, because it's not just the player card, it's all the different tokens and stuff you need for them. And one of the things I'm finding as we're moving closer to finalizing this is having to be more aware of, how much you can fit into a game and how much the costs are. And if you add another player and it's adding this many more cards and this many more tokens and stuff, how does that affect the cost? That's something I'll get into another design diary. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I would be curious what people think about this. If they like the idea of having differentiations to the characters as opposed to just every character plays exactly the same. And also what you think about if you'd like to have more choices of characters, right? If hypothetically the game is designed to be played, with up to 4 characters, would you like to have 6 characters included so you have a little bit of options there instead of just playing with the base ones? Or maybe that's not worth the additional headache of having to choose, and it's easier like, hey, there's 4 characters, everyone grab one of them and let's just go. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.